excited today. For me, it's like a super special day. I feel like it's my birthday. I'm not kidding. So, first of all, I want to say a big welcome, everyone. And thank you so much, actually, for taking the time to attend Oxygen's second event for this year, The Power Within, Empowering Women at Work. And this event actually marks and highlights our recent product launch. Some of you are already familiar with our platform, Oxygen, an employee well-being digital studio. And it is really lovely to meet so many of you for the first time. Yes, some of you we've met before, but some of you it's just the first time. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Alexandra. I'm the founder and CEO of Urban Yoga Lab and Oxygen. And I will be your host for this evening. So, for those of you who would like to hear what actually makes me so much passionate about female, women empowerment, it all comes down to my story, my personal story. So in 2018, I used to work as a PR executive for a PR agency, an elite PR agency here in London. And I was that kind of career dream kind of girl. So I was like that kind of workaholic, super engaged person, like sacrificing my weekends, not having any friends. But for me, I mean, that was my American dream, and it was okay. Up until one day when I went to work like any other day, and I felt like my chest was on fire. I couldn't breathe properly, but I ignored it. And very soon I actually had a panic attack and a faint. And that was the day when I experienced burnout while I was at work. And I know, of course, so many people actually have experienced something so traumatic. But for me, on my 30s, that was a shock. And I will never forget that when I went to reach out for help, a therapist said to me, you know what, you spent 10 years being an imposter syndrome, feeling like an imposter syndrome. You've been a person who was secretly suffering from digital addiction, chronic stress and anxiety, and you put yourself at risk for such a long time. So he said, now you need to disconnect from this career that you built and take a 6 months break. I was like, what? I felt like a junkie because I was really kind of addicted to work. So I felt like somebody took away from me something so special, something I needed like oxygen, right? So I said, you know what, this is impossible. And then he explained that actually, if there was no other option for me because I needed to go through this process. So that moment I said to myself, you know what, I just sacrificed my career for my mental health. And I didn't know what to do with my life. I mean, there was no meaning, there was no purpose. And I experienced a midlife crisis, so I packed my things and I just embarked on a journey around the world. And I feel so happy. I actually, for the very first time, could just listen to my heart and follow my heart. So for 2 years, I spent time in Buddhist monasteries and homeless centers and mindfulness hubs in places like Cambodia, Vietnam, Thailand, Peru, with one single mission. And my mission originally was to hack sustainable high performance via mindfulness. Said, when I'm gonna go back to work, I will have my armory, I will be ready. And thanks to my teachers, I've realized that that I needed to go deeper. So I've learned the art of meditation. I've learned about mindfulness, CBT, somatics, pranayama, so many tools. And then I mix and match different tools, and I created my own mindfulness toolkit. 2 years later, when I came back to London, I started delivering those on a pro bono basis with Mind, a charity in mental health here in London. And when I've seen how these tools can help people with chronic mental health issues, I said to myself, oh my God, those tools cannot help just me. And if those tools can help even those people, what can they do to hybrid employees, like people like I used to be myself, right? Like competitive or like career driven or working in a fast-paced environment, tight deadlines, thinking about the next bonus, the next promotion. So I said, you know what? I'm going to share those programs, those tools with those employees. So in 2020, I launched my first business, Urban Yoga Lab. And that became my life's work, my life's mission. So I delivered my Zen Warrior programs within the first 2 years, despite the pandemic, to more than 50 global brands, including Royal Bank of Canada, Wells Fargo, Canada's Law in 6 markets, and so many employees had the opportunity to access the right tools they needed to feel empowered, to feel mentally and emotionally healthy. And within 2 years' time, we actually decided as a team to productize, digitize our services because they were so in high demand, and offer those via our platform so we can make them accessible and affordable to even more employees. And that's when we decided to launch Boxes and our employee well-being platform 6 months ago. And today we celebrate this new chapter. It's another journey, of course, for me and our entire team, and I'm so excited about it. So I want to talk a little bit about, today is going to be all about helping you and just sharing with you some best practices that can actually help you to explore new ways of becoming the employer of choice within your respective industries. So today of course, all we want to know how we can best empower our employees, and even more, our women at work, and how we can actually redesign, revitalize, maybe rebuild our employee well-being strategy for 2023. So we're going to share with you, a few information about the challenges and of course the emerging trends. But by the end of this discussion, my intention is that you will go away with actionable tips, hacks, best practices that you can launch within your business from day one. So let's begin this evening with some high-level context on the various challenges that are impacting women at work today. We all know there is lack of well-being and mental health among women at work today. And it's interesting because I was looking at a study the other day which shows that 1 out of 10 working women in the UK say that they are currently struggling to manage emotions, stress and anxiety because of pressure at work. Over 2 in 5 working women say their employer had no plan in place to protect them from burnout. 1 out of 3 women saying that they simply do not know if there is any support in place to help them stay well at work. I don't know about you, but for me these numbers are alarming. And it's not just because of my personal story, it's just because I get to meet so many women every day because of what we do in Oxygen, and I get to hear stories. So stories when women are faced with so many challenges from so many different dimensions and directions. So this is why I personally feel there is a need for a greater employee experience, and I feel that it is so important to invest in employee well-being, and especially when this has to do with our women at work. So, luckily our panel of well-being experts are on hand tonight to dive into those topics and to share some tips, hacks, and best practices that you can launch now. So, without further ado, please let me introduce you to our two speakers for today. So here we have Felicia Rickards, is a strategic consulting partner, coach, and facilitator. She partners with companies and business owners who are committed to improve their operational excellence to increase their standing as an employer of choice. Her diverse experience across various industries, including finance, hospitality, and government, have contributed to her broad knowledge bank. She has leadership experience as a corporate vice president, board chairman, and deputy chairman. She is a certified career advancement coach, certified financial educational instructor, and accredited mediator. Felicia serves as a learning team leader at the annual Advancing Women Leaders Institute, a week-long experience attended by over 3,000 women, and has facilitated various programs for participants from across the globe. She is also an author. Her book title is Voices of the 21st Century. Her executive coaching clients would have to provide individual releases, but they are from across the globe. Typical assessments used as initial groundwork for coaching, advancing women leaders, purposeful leadership, and inclusion champion. So, and this is Felicia. So can we have a round of applause for all of these speakers? I'm so excited to be next to super women like you, I mean, I'm really humbled, and I'm so excited that you are actually said yes to my invitation. It feels surreal.
Thank you so much. It was easy to say yes. This is my wheelhouse, my perfect space, so I really appreciate you inviting me.
Thank you. And now let me introduce to you Petra Velzeboer, who is a global TEDx speaker, psychotherapist, author, and CEO of mental health consultancy, PVL. She brings expertise on topics that impact employees, managers, and C-suite leadership with the aim of evolving our workplaces and cultures for the new world of work. Petra is the author of Begin With You, published by Kogan Page, a practical insight into thriving in adversity and challenging toxicity, groupthink, and healthy behaviors in a world that is desperate for change. Her inspiration and motivation come from her unique and compelling story, which she tells with vulnerability, authenticity, and dynamic challenge to her audiences worldwide. Born and raised in a notorious cult, she knows firsthand what a toxic culture feels like and what it takes to build resilience and take responsibility for good mental health. Working with the likes of PwC, Monzo, Novartis, she actually empowers hybrid employees all over the world. So Patricia, welcome and thank you.
She makes us sound amazing, doesn't she? Yeah.
So we are so grateful you were able to make the time to speak with us on such a multi-dimensional topic. And I would like to, my first question is all about the story, right? Because I believe so much in the power of storytelling. And I recall the first time I heard yourself, Petra, sharing your story with a big audience. and I was so much inspired. So my first question for today is, like, what's your story and what are the driving forces behind your passion about women empowerment?
Thank you. Okay, let's kick off. Loaded question though. How do I fit my story into 3 minutes or less and talk about women's empowerment? Well, I am a woman. Beginners, start there. I have a daughter. I have a mother. I also have a son, you know? And so this topic becomes really important when we're passing on, ideas, wisdom, knowledge to change generations in front of us. So my story, as you kind of alluded to, I was born and raised in a cult. I have a Dutch passport, so in case you couldn't tell by the accent, that's always what people first say, where are you from? And then I get them to guess, and it usually takes about 13 and a half guesses before someone says Holland, and there we go, bingo. But I grew up globally. We grew up in communes. I grew up in India, Brazil, Russia, Kenya, all over Europe. And, we were born with a shared mission. And so people immediately think, cult, ooh. But I can pitch this story in one of two ways. If I talk to people and say, I was raised in a commune, people lean in these days because they're like desperate for community, right? And so they're like, oh my goodness, where was it? How did it work, right? And I can play that game if I want to as a cocktail party kind of joke. But over time, it really was a cult. So the belief systems, groupthink, coercive control, all of these things to help us, stay fixed on the collective goal. So if there was any individual goal, it was discouraged, and if there was a collective goal, it was rewarded. Sound like any corporates anywhere? Patriarchal, right? And the higher up you go, if you think of a startup, right, and you start there's that passionate founder, right, who's just got a mission, they've got a belief, and they've got to almost be like over the top in order for people to go, sure, I'll take a shit salary. I didn't check if we could swear. Can you swear? I'll take a shit salary and do this thing of work hard now for rewards later. Culty. And it's religious as well. It's and so it's not making those things bad, but I guess the messages I want to bring across is those similarities that I see across the different layers. And that really all of the kind of hacks and tips and tools, there's so many of them out there, right? Has anyone ever been overwhelmed by just the amount of do this, do this, do this, do this, do this, right? Before 7 a.m. in order to invest in your well-being, and we're all stressed out, right? And so I guess the title of my book, Begin With You, is the most important thing is self-awareness and deciding what is right for you at this phase of your life, right? And so my story led me at 22. I was kind of leading a real double life for all of my teenage years. So on the one hand, I was actually trusted in the community and was kind of leading youth camps and sort of involved in things, the mask firmly in place. And on the other hand, I would meet my sister, who had left at the time, and lead a completely hedonistic life of drugs, alcohol, escapism, right? And what I'm seeing a lot of today is that if we can't be self-aware or answer these difficult questions about how we're living our life, we tend to avoid, we tend to numb, we tend to do all the things which the world makes really easy these days. To kind of avoid taking responsibility for our own well-being and our life. And so the short version is, I ended up leaving. I was pregnant with my son and moved to London with my boyfriend, who was outside of the community. But then, and this links to the burnout theme, sometimes it's when you leave the toxic environment that your body finally feels safe and falls apart, right? And you're like, what? I'm safe now. And so for me, the stacking of trauma and all the things that I hadn't dealt with and didn't know how to deal with really kind of spiraled me into much worse addiction. I had my daughter then as well. And so I've experienced quite a few rock bottom moments where, I put myself, my kids in danger, because I just didn't know how to build my life. I'd never been given those tools. And so from those rock bottom moments, I had to make a choice, right? And I remember the day as if it was yesterday. Waking up sorry, I can't do this in 3 minutes. I'm sorry. I'll wrap it up. And so I remember this day where I woke up 6 a.m., my 2 young kids sleeping downstairs. You know, I'd spiraled in addictive cycles of just shame and risky behaviors and so many things. And I remember staring at the ceiling and thinking, I'm done. Like, I can't do this anymore. And I'd convinced myself that my own kids would be better off without me. And I thought, I have no other choice, I'm going to take my life. And for some reason, and this is not advice, for some reason, a second thought just came into my head. And that was, what if I postponed taking my life for 1 year? Again, not advice, right? But for some reason I had this exit strategy, and I thought, well, if it all goes to shit, if I can't solve this, I know what I'm going to do. And for some reason that freed me up to experiment with all of the tools that we talk about, right? And to just test and try and let go if it didn't work. And so that year came and went, and life really wasn't perfect, but I learned a few things. I learned that you can teach yourself to be happy, and that no matter where you are in life, you can create the building blocks to radically change, the trajectory of your life. And I'll wrap it up.
Wow. Oh my God. Yes. Incredible story. When I heard this story for the very first time, I felt like I was watching a movie. I thought this is like, wow. And you know what for me personally, when I hear your story, what is really empowering is that you actually share the story openly, and that helps other women to feel empowered to share their own stories. And there is so much beauty when it comes to creating a safe space where we all can actually tell our stories with no judgment, with no fear, right? And this is something I discuss with so many companies, so many business leaders, that if you actually create that safe space within your organization and let women together just to tell their stories and spend some time together, empowering each other, this can be so powerful. It can be a game changer when it comes to well-being. So Felicia, I'd love to hear what are the driving forces behind your own reason for promoting women empowerment at work.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to travel around the world today with all our experiences. So I was actually born and raised in Paradise, which is Bermuda Islands.
Wow.
And for those of you who don't know, Bermuda Islands is the British Overseas Territory financial accounting center, so highly connected to England. I spent my educational years in America, State University, never even traveled to Indiana before. Went back to Bermuda and started my career in finance. Started off very well. I was mentored by 5 gentlemen. I was the only woman at the time in the sales team at the company. But they were really helpful. They were personable, they were supportive, they were funny, they were real. And in those days, anybody involved in finance, they still made door-to-door calls. So I get lots of feedback from them on how the day went and what funny instances happened. So because I'm a genius and I'm brilliant, I got promoted. But then what happens next, so when we get to the HR tips, I'm ready. What happens next is that your support system gets pulled from you. Right? Anybody agree? And then you're promoted because you've done a great job at the level that you're at. But then when you're ready to make the next move, I kind of felt like, wait, I gotta figure this out. Trial and error, mistakes, baptism by fire. And I could have advanced so much quicker if I had a proper support system. Great company, and of course, me being me, I didn't really know what that meant. I didn't really know at the time about sponsorship, mentors. I didn't understand any of that, so I kind of had to create my path on my own. I got to a point where one of my friends says, okay, now you have the corner office that was overlooking Hamilton Harbor, which is beautiful. The yachts were lined up out front of my office, executive meetings, executive boardrooms, and guess what? At each stage of my career, I was blocked by a male. Now, remember I said financial services, so there's always somebody else that is not so excited to see you advance. And I found that very challenging to manage. How do you speak out? Do you speak to HR? Does HR speak to your boss? Does HR speak to the CEO? I don't know what she's complaining about. Well, does she have an attitude? Well, what's her problem? She's got a good salary, bonus, stocks, paycheck. I don't get it. So I was starting to feel over and over a little bit uncomfortable, particularly when I was seeing my conversations in PowerPoint format in executive meetings, and it wasn't my presentation. So I said, wait, hang on, self. Something's just not ringing quite true. So coincidentally at the time, I have a son and a daughter too. We're so connected. Look at the nails.
We got very excited.
You can't fake that excitement. Look at the nails. I have a son and a daughter as well. So my son was transitioning to a school in England. So the four of us, my husband as well, we moved to England. Again, HR as well. So I thought in my brilliance, I had an excellent CV. I was quite comfortable being who I am, and I'm very personable, as you can tell, being an island girl. But I think I applied for 500 jobs easily. No reply, no reply, no reply, no reply, no reply, no reply, no reply. That's where my challenge came. So I had left the corporate career before the burnout, but my challenge came in trying to reinvent myself in a new environment. I didn't understand it. I couldn't comprehend. At least tell me no. Don't just not reply. That led me to a very dark place. I don't get it. I moved my family. We're family, British Overseas Territory. Everybody who relocates to Bermuda always said, wow, we're one and the same. You know, yeah, I'm your boss, but ooh, we're kin. It wasn't working for me. I could not understand it. So I decided it was time to do something different. So you spoke earlier about what do you pull from within? And that's going to be a lot of my conversation today. What do you pull from within? Because I felt myself getting to that stage where I'm not quite comfortable with how my mind is working anymore. I'm not comfortable with my thought processes. I'm not comfortable with how much I'm crying every day. I'm not comfortable with the fact that I didn't open my curtains. I'm not comfortable with the fact that it's taking me longer and longer to get out of bed in the morning, that I'm drinking more in the evening. I'm not comfortable with that. So what do? So fortunately, I was able to reach out to a network that I had built. And I reached out to some really, really close professional friends in the US because during the course of my career, every year I set a professional development goal for myself. I'm going to touch on that a lot today. I first certified as a coach in 2008 before it became popular because I knew within myself that was something that was going to come out later in life. I didn't know when, I didn't know how. I also had completed change management certifications. I had completed executive facilitation certifications, all while working in finance because I knew in myself, you know, I think I could be good at this. I enjoy it. I study, I read. Where's Katie? Is Katie here? I saw her early. Oh, there she is. I just downloaded her report from Albright yesterday because what I do is I absorb information, data, trends, information, and I store it all and I pull it out when I need it. So I was able to reach out to a network and say, listen, for whatever reason, this transition is not going like I thought it would. What do you have going on that I can participate in? So hence I grew ties with an organization in the US, I'll speak about it later, it's not really the priority. And that grew my network for facilitation, hence my annual events in the US that I attend. It grew my support, it grew my validation for executive coaching, a track that I was on anyway. So then I began to say to myself, well, that wasn't the path for you. You were fighting for something that you weren't meant to do anymore. And that's why I'm so passionate about supporting women in the workplace.
This is, first of all, thank you for sharing your story with us. It's great, you know, so brave. And I mean, I myself get so much inspired by women like you, because it's what you said, it's about reinventing, restarting. It is about embarking on a journey of self-growth and self-development, and say yes to a new chapter, and you were brave enough to do that, and it's so empowering. What you said about community and how community and our networks can actually help us feel so much more confident. It's something I personally experienced, and this is something I tap into, to this superpower for the last 5 years. I launched a community for women. Some of them are here today, and I'm so excited about it. It is all about a community all about women empowerment. I launched 3 years ago, which is called EGL. And we are 8,000 members today. And thanks to this community, I've learned so much. And because of this community, thanks to those people, I became so much stronger, more resilient. And for the very first time, 3 years ago, I started believing in myself for real. So thank you. For those of you who are in this room, you know who you are. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So that takes me to the next question, and it's all about strategies and approaches. It's when it comes to more practical tips, how we can actually, as women, prioritize our well-being and our mental health. And this is a question I get to hear all the time. So Felicia, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this.
This one is near to my heart, because most of the executive coaching that I'm doing now, coincidentally, is with women. And sometimes the universe just takes you down a path that you didn't know was gonna be laid out in front of you, but that by coincidence. And the themes, like everything I hear today, I hear from them. I hear the same things about burnout, about stress, and being challenged with well-being. And for me, what's really important is that we take a step back and understand that work is a part of our life. Work is not our life. We've kind of evolved what work means, and particularly with social media, and you said it earlier in terms of with being accessible 24 hours a day, with the demands, the pressures of producing, deadlines, time, and I feel like something has changed, because I've always worked on deadlines and timelines, but something's changed where we have now prioritized work over everything else. I'm not sure why, I'm not sure how, and I think some of that is in trying to prove that we're equal. Now, here's my little nugget on that, just from hearing so many women speak about this. In trying to prove that we're equal, we forget that we're different. Right?
Okay.
We forget that we're different. So our equality is not about proving that we're the same. Our equality is about being available and ready and awarded opportunities. Not that we're equal. I'm different. I'm different than everybody else in the room. I'm different than probably every boss that I've had, most of whom have been male. In fact, I think everyone has been male. And we really need to take the time to understand when it is enough is enough. So whether that means we have a support system that can take the kids for an hour. If we don't have that support system, what does that mean? What is your absolute no? And why do we keep saying yes? It's almost like the little ones, the toddler in the grocery store. We keep saying yes, and they say, okay, I'll give it to you, I'll give it to you, I'll give it to you. The more we give, the more they take. And I'm going to generalize a bit today, so forgive me. Generally, we are nurturers, because generally, we have responsibility for raising the little ones, generally. So don't go cancel me and all that. I'm just going on conversations that I've had with women around the world. We know it internally, the stomach, right? The anxiety, the tension, right? Usually for us it's across the neck. The tension, the anxiety, the stomach, the reactions. Some days, somebody can test you a little bit and you laugh about it. Other days, ooh, you're on fire, right? There's a reason for that. Understand what that is for you first.
Yeah, I mean, words of wisdom, honestly, I'm speechless. I don't know, but by just listening to you, and then it happened last time I spoke to you again, I feel like I am practicing meditation while I'm just listening to you. It's a constant invitation to go deeper and to be unapologetically ourselves. And this is so empowering, Felicia. Yes, it's amazing. I mean, thank you so much. So I'm going to ask now Petra about how we can actually prioritize our mental health and well-being. Strategies, practices, tips, anything you would like to share, really.
So I agree with everything you've said there. Some great tips and ideas and themes across the gender split. It's funny, for the longest time I would steer clear of women's groups and would prefer to be in the boardroom and to be kind of hustling in a male culture. I felt like I knew the rules. I felt like I could actually use that difference to my advantage. I think it's worth remembering what stage of life you're in. You know the metaphor they talk about in the well-being space about, like, put your oxygen mask on first before you put it on your baby? I feel like this was made up by a man, because no woman in her right mind would ever do this, right? So I don't actually think it's practical to be like, hey, let's all be in this really zen place before we do anything. I think it's two roads going at once, and that's my experience, right? If you can achieve that full zen state before tackling life, tell me how you do it. Tell me how you do it. I think there's phases of our life, and if you start life with a kind of poor hand of cards, you know? So I didn't go to school as a kid, right? We thought the world was gonna end. Why would you go to school, right? So I'm now 22, 23, I've got 2 kids. I have no education. I'm in London, the most expensive city in the world, lonely as all hell because I'm isolated, right? And so if I wanted to change my life from that rock bottom point, I had to do the 3-minute well-being tools, and I had to take action. I just had to. I had to study at night. I had to raise my 2 kids and give them the most presents that was possible, and I had to hustle to get to any kind of equal baseline, even to other women, in order to then have a possibility of something else. Now the tricky thing is, I feel like that was a great thing for me to do, and I'm happy I did it, right? The tricky thing is recognizing when you are changing phases of life, when actually you've achieved some of those things, and actually the same habits of survival and hustle that got you to one place are not the same habits that are going to get you to the next place, right? Pause. What do I need now? Because otherwise your nervous system is going to decide, right? And so I found myself hustle, 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 hustle. I'm safe. I'm earning a salary. I'm in a good situation, you know what I mean? And so actually things were okay, but my survival and my trauma was still like driving me forward. And that's the bit that was bad for my physical and mental health. Do you, yeah? So check which phase of life you're at. Don't judge yourself too harshly if there's a bit of hustle going on, but note that you need recovery time. So even if it's like, if you zoom out on your life, rather than like every day I must do this thing, this thing, this thing, this thing, this thing, and stress yourself out, right? I must journal, I must meditate, I must run, I must do all these things before 7 a.m. But if you zoom out on your life for like a quarter, like a 3-month stint, what are your recovery points and how are they perhaps different than other people? I guess hopefully that's the starting point. It starts with self-awareness. Knowing your story, knowing your triggers, your trauma, and actually communicating boundaries effectively. And I think you're talking about saying no, but like, I didn't even know what a boundary was. What are you talking about? A wall? I don't have time to build one. You know what I mean? So it's like, how does a boundary actually translate into the nuance and the detail of your personal life?
I love how you just summarized it, and I feel like it personally resonates with me. I spend so much time on die or like leave kind of state of mentality. Like I was on a fight or flight mode. I think almost 10 years, right, from my 20s to 30s. And sometimes, I just look back and I'm asking myself, did I really need to go through all this traumatic stress, chronic anxiety, non-stop? And I think that the answer is no. And maybe this is why I'm so passionate about this topic of women empowerment. Because I feel like if back then I had the chance to listen to women like you or Felicia, I would be able to see the world from a completely different angle. So, and what you just said leads to the next question, which is all about burnout. And because I personally experienced that myself, I get to meet so many women who are actually asking, Alex, how can I actually be able to recognize the signs early enough so I can be proactive about it, so I can actually prevent it. So my question to you, Felicia, is what would you respond back to those women?
I think a lot about athletes. So my husband is a coach, and sometimes I get to work with his athletes on their mindset as well. And two things, because this is an HR empowerment audience. One is the best athletes do not make a move, a decision, enter a tournament. They don't practice unless they have their coach/advisor on board. The best athletes. They have that person, and if you think of golf, even that person is by their side the entire time. What do you think? Can I do this? Should I do this? How do I take that shot? What's the wind like? What's the distance? What club am I using? That resonates with me because in corporate, we just keep pushing ahead. Like the more we push ahead, we're never going to hit a wall, right? Why do we think this is possible? Also, the best athletes also understand when it's time to rest. Rest and recovery, correct? I see nodding. Rest and recovery. If you do not rest and recover, then what happens? Tear, break, worn ligaments, knee pain, surgery. You're out of the game. Either way, you're out of the game. You either take the time to recover or your body is going to shut down on you. There's no other solution. So whenever you're in a situation where you're feeling like, yeah, I gotta do this, I gotta keep going, I gotta report and deadline and and my mother-in-law, my sister and my brother, and it's all spinning around in your head, you know that you need to stop. You know something has to give. If it doesn't give one way, it's gonna give in another way. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, 100%. And that takes me back to what you've said earlier about boundaries, right? And I feel like so many of us, it is hard, you know, we get into this kind of people-pleasing kind of mindset, this kind of codependency kind of mindset, or to this mindset that I will prove myself over and over again. And it doesn't come from a place of abundance and happiness and fulfillment. It comes from a place of desperation. So Petra, I'd love to hear your thoughts on burnout and what do you think? How we can see the signs early enough?
So firstly, the statistics are that it can take, if you reach full-on burnout, that collapse that you talked about, it can take between 2 and 5 years to recover. Has anyone got time for that? Right. And so people think that they're like, we're fine, and then burnt out. That's not how it works, right? And if you're wondering if you're experiencing some of this, like emotional exhaustion, cynicism, you know, not feeling fulfilled in your work, check out the 12 stages of burnout. You can just Google it, there's 12 stages. And interestingly, the 11th stage is depression. And so people who are feeling, and then I think the 10th stage is inner emptiness, kind of similar, but there's like a dark place that happens before. And interestingly, we've got this rise of depression statistics where people are going to their GP for antidepressants or looking at their low mood, which is a symptom of a much greater issue. So do check out those 12 stages because the first ones are like working harder, proving yourself, revision of values, so the things that you used to matter to, you're like, oh, I'll get to that next week, right? And so those are those early stages. And so I always ask people, so if I work with exec teams and groups of women and in companies, leaders, just put those 12 stages up on the PowerPoint, right? And have a discussion and say, where have you ever ended up, right? So we now have this open conversation of like, oh, 5, 6, 7, you know, wherever it was. And then the crucial question is, what stage for you is like a red flag warning sign, right? And for me, I think it's 6 or 7, it's displacing conflict. You build up your stress, but you're very professional in the workplace, right? And then as soon as you get home, you take it out on everybody that you love the most, you get it, right? You yell at someone, the toilet seat, whatever, right? And blame the patriarchy, obviously. Sorry, gentlemen. But really it's like, are you so, you know, are you on that path to burnout? And so for me, if I start snapping at my teenagers or not being my best self that I want to be, that's like my, whoa, all right, I need a little bit of space or whatever it is that will help pull me back into a kind of healthier place. So again, in summary, self-awareness, taking some responsibility for where you're at. Now that doesn't take away the structures around us, the systems around us, the stresses, the economy, and all the things that are stressing us out. But regardless of all of that, what's the responsibility that you can take within it? One small thing, focus on what's in your control, which could be reaching out, right? And having that backup and community like you described so well. So find the thing for you, and that thing can change, right? We get very attached. This is my well-being tool, this is my toolkit, this is what I always do. Allow it to change, allow it to evolve depending on what's going on in your life.
I love what you said about the entire thing, but especially about the stages. And what it actually brings in mind is that, like 3 years ago, when I had a conversation with our therapist, he actually said to me something that it shocked me. He said, did you know that the first stage of burnout, it is called the honeymoon phase? How many of you, raise your hand, how many of you did you know that this is a part of the, no? Okay, so the honeymoon phase, this signs that you can tell that you are in the honeymoon phase is you see an employee going above and beyond. They just started a new job, or they just launched a business, or they just moved from one department to another, and they are super engaged. And they're like, wow, this person, super amazing. The same person, you see them being a little bit kind of
over productive, like, and you know, you might think that this is normal just because they are in love with what they do, right? And you're like, oh, yes, keep going this way. But the issue here is that if you do not make sure that those employees who belong and they experience this stage, they do not prioritize mental health and well-being, they tend to overwork secretly, they tend to feel they are not good enough even when they produce something phenomenal, and they tend to kind of isolate themselves just to work harder. If you see those signs, you can definitely connect and go closer to those employees and try to find out how you can actually help and maybe raise awareness at this stage.
Right? Because in my case, I thought people who are in love with their careers, they never experience burnout. I thought this is just for those disengaged people who wake up in the morning and they hate to go to the office. But the reality is different, and I was in this kind of dark zone for such a long time. I had no idea. So many employees are actually unaware of mental health and well-being, and why is this important? So my next question is about confidence. And so many women, they are like, Alex, you go and do summits and talks, and you come across as so confident. And I'm like, you know what, I'm not. And it just makes me thinking what you said earlier about the masks, right? Sometimes, yes, I am confident, I'm in alignment, I'm fully present, just like tonight. But there are some times that I just, fake it to a great extent. And inside me, I just feel like, oh, I'm gonna die, that type of feeling. So I get to hear this from so many women, how we can actually build confidence, because confidence is so much connected and interlinked with women empowerment. So what are the best practices, Felicia, you would personally recommend? Might be not practice, might be a way of thinking, right? Anything.
So I'll tell you a secret. I'm a natural introvert. I am, I promise. Now, I acknowledge that. My family understands what that means. So if I have a full day of facilitation, they know when I get home, it's quiet time. Give me 30 minutes, I just disappear into a room by myself, and then I recharge. Confidence, or perceived lack thereof, is not unusual for human beings, right? It's not unusual because we naturally get discomforted by things that are a little bit out of the usual for us, outside of the norm. We naturally get discomforted by it. And it's easy for us not to attack it. It's easy for us to say, no, I don't want to speak in front of the exec team. I'll leave that for Sarah to do, or leave that for Jim to do. No, I don't think I can lead my team in a sales retreat. No, can we hire somebody? Let's call
Ghostbusters.
I get it to come in. And really, it comes from continuing to push yourself. And I guarantee you that somebody needs your support. So in the same way that we are here and we have had experiences, if you would have seen, oh my goodness, off the street earlier, if you would have seen us on the street in passing, you probably wouldn't have given us a second glance. Had no idea that we had stories and experiences that we could share with you that might trigger a light bulb, that might support you, that might energize you, that might inspire you. So by you being more confident, it's not about you anymore. It's about you being that person for somebody else. It's about you showing somebody else that, listen, I'm not a natural at this. but I do have a message. I have had this experience. You are on my team. I know we're in a male environment in financial services like I was. I see that you are a new career starter. I would like to be able to support somebody else. Because we're in our own minds, and I say this again because I work a lot with women. We're in our own minds. Am I doing enough? Am I doing a good job? We bury ourselves in proving that we can do it. Yeah, you can do it. That's why you got hired. They know you can do it. That's why you got promoted. They know you can do it. Stop. It's not about you anymore. It's about the young ladies that come behind you. And for me, that's where my kind of light bulb moment came. You spoke earlier about where you are in your life cycle. It's not about me anymore. It's about somebody else that cannot have to go through the situation that you described, that I described, that Alex described. So your confidence supports somebody else on their journey.
Honestly, I love what you just said, because every single time before I'm ready to do a panel discussion or a talk, I just pray for a few minutes, right? And I pray to God to just make me the right vehicle to communicate the right message that will actually serve people who are attending. And because of this prayer, each and every time that single prayer makes me feel so much more confident. And it works every time like magic. I just loved what you said, Felicia, absolutely. So Petra, what are your thoughts?
Again, condense them. Well, I'd love a show of hands. Who feels confident in one area of their life? One area. So it might be work, it might be a passion, it might be something that you do. Most of you, right? Yeah, I feel like there's a bit of a here at the front. That's fine, halfway. So that means in that one area of your life, you have figured something out. You've practiced the skill. Maybe you became an expert in your field. Maybe you've talked to people that also get it, so that's kind of boost your confidence. And maybe you've had recognition or whatever. People have noticed validation that you have done that thing, right? And I imagine whenever you started this thing, you were not an expert at it, right? You went to college, you went to school, maybe you worked with mentors, whatever you did. And so you have somehow built confidence in this one area, right? And so that means you have transferable skills to other areas of your life, right? So it's kind of like, what are the hacks or the tools or the practice that you've already used? And how do you transfer that into another area of your life that you don't feel confident in? And you're gonna get some fundamental principles, right? Practice, taking action, doing the thing even when it feels scary, right? Those are the types of principles, starting maybe with a safe group, like a small group, like people maybe you know, and then expanding out into different things. And so for me, I'm one of 5 siblings. We're a blended family. I'm the only little blonde girl in the pack. And I was dead quiet and silent when I was a kid, because when you grow up in communes, you learn that survival is either fight or flight, or you shut the fuck up and figure it out by watching others, excuse my language, right? And so my hypervigilance is very attuned, right? And so now I speak on big stages and do things kind of like you do, right? And you don't flip a switch and go from that to that, right? Any person who is on stage or does something that you admire in your field has very slowly, each and every single day, done one small thing to practice bravery. That's how I like to put it. So what's one thing I can do to practice being brave? And so if you're a well-being champion, if you're an HR lead, sometimes we think it's the big things. It is that exec meeting, it's presenting, it's analytics, it's whatever it is, right? But I challenge people to, your one brave thing can be to be honest yourself about how you are doing or something going on in your life, right? Because so many people in the well-being space are not leading by example themselves. In fact, when I chat to them, they'll kind of whisper, it's only two of us, but they'll be like, hey, yeah, I'm not doing any of those things I tell other people to do. I'm totally burnt out, and I'm gonna leave my business soon. And I'm like whispering on Zoom, right? Like, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry, right? But I hear it every single day. What is wrong with this picture? Why are so many people leaving businesses, and why is talent retention such an issue, which we, people in HR, are trying to solve, right? And yet we're the ones leaving, right? What is wrong with this picture? And so practicing bravery for me is calling out discrimination or behavior that's not inclusive, but also learning, what your own flaws are. Like, I remember being in a boardroom and it was all men, all white men, right? And I was invited to be an expert at the table, and I observed for a little second what was going on in this primal landscape. And everyone was just talking over each other. Loudest person wins, right? And I am an extrovert, but still, right? I'm the odd one out. And so, and I was doing this, raising my hand, waiting for somebody to go, Petra, tell me, And so for sometimes we need to mimic behaviors in order to get our voice across. Sometimes we do. I know we talk about code switching and shape-shifting and all these sorts of things that I'm certainly guilty of myself. But sometimes, so I just spoke a little louder and finished my sentence fully, instead of going what women often do, blah, 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 super powerful point, powerful point, end the fucking sentence. But what we do is, what do you think? Or I might be wrong, right? And so we go, super powerful point, and then shoot ourselves in the foot. Right? So the practice I learned was to finish a sentence with a full stop in my head. Do you know what I mean? Like we phase out. Like we said something and I might be wrong and I'm super stupid, right? And so learning to say sentences and finish them. And you gotta sit with the, you gotta sit with that. And that's the practice.
That will be my key takeaway for today, for sure. For sure. So that brings me to think a little bit about success. And I know success has different meanings to different people. However, for some reason, I personally feel, right, I might be wrong, but I'm not wrong, that we tend to be brainwashed by influencers, social media, TV. What is success, what success looks like. And then we tend to glamorize that and follow it as a kind of almost a religion. And I want really to be able to rethink and reflect and change this narrative for myself, what success truly means for me, and do this work. So how can women define success for themselves, right? That's my first question. And this question applies to both personal and professional lives. And I want to give you a minute or so to reflect on that. And I want to ask our lovely audience here, I'd like to invite you to turn to the person right next to you and just tell them what success means for you. Inspire some of you in this room today to just maybe spend over the weekend, do some journaling and just reflect, or have a conversation with a mentor or a therapist or a friend, right? And now as we move towards the end, we have 2 questions before we just enjoy our networking session. My next question is all about work-life balance. And I know that this is a
big challenge for so many of us. So raise your hand if you find this challenging, work-life balance. What is it? You know, a friend of mine the other day said, work-life balance doesn't exist. And I was like, interesting. So I'd love to hear your thoughts, because I get to meet so many career-driven women who are like, you know what, no time for personal life, no time for friends, no time for family. And they are trying to rebalance everything and try to find some balance between their personal and professional lives. So how would you recommend to women to rethink when it comes to work-life balance? And is it a reality? Is it something that we can actually make it happen, Felicia, or it is just you know, in our imagination somewhere? Like
Imagination. So here's the thing. You can have it all, but just not all at the same time, right? Not all at the same time. It is not possible. If you leave here with one thing ringing in your mind, not all at the same time, not all at the same time. Because, I said earlier about life cycles, right? That kind of drives where we are and what's important. So typically, 20s, 30s, it's important that you get money. Your money is usually so that you can party, right? Then you get a little bit older, you say, okay, wow, I'm a little bit older, I need a little bit more security. So then this becomes important. And then you start to advance in your career, and then this becomes important. And maybe you have a family, and then that becomes important. And then maybe your parents are aged, and then that becomes important. So based on exactly where you are, that becomes your focus. Don't try to make this big entire circle of, yoga in the morning, and then I got 2 minutes to have coffee, and then I got 10 minutes for this, and then I got an exact presentation, and then. Not all at the same time. Pick what's most important to you at that stage in your life and focus on it. That's why sometimes you see, the big CEO of a company and he has no idea who his son or his daughter is because he doesn't have time to spend with them. It's that same kind of concept, because that time is spent jetting around from country to country, focusing on the work, the bottom line, the acquisition, and then it's like Christmas time, it's like, wait, Dad, you bought me the same socks last year, you don't remember? Not all at the same time. Pick what's important to you at this stage in your life, because the rest will come, and quit the comparisons, right? Quit the comparisons, because I kid you not, sometimes I will look, and I hate to pull social media as an example, sometimes I will look at what people are saying and posting, and I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, it took you like 6 hours to get that one shot. Like, what did you do with the rest of your day? I promise you. Just look at it, the designer clothes, the location, et cetera, et cetera. So pick what's important to you at this stage in your life and go with it. Success is a journey. It's not a destination, because when you get there, then you're bored. Oh, wait, I thought this was it, right? Oh, then you get there and, oh, wait, that's not it, so maybe I need that. Oh, wait, hang on a minute, then I need a promotion. Oh, the other one is nice, but and then you're constantly kind of trying to get validation from a point or an item or a promotion or something that you feel like you're chasing. Just enjoy today, now. Who do you connect with? What friends have you left behind? Left university, haven't reconnected. What makes you tick? A lot of times in coaching sessions, when people hire me personally, especially for females, my first question is, who are you? And that's the exact response. That's the exact response that I get. Who are you? So I'm going to leave you with that. It's a journey, not a destination. What cycle in life are you at? And I know you're going to jump on that. It's perfectly timed. Yeah. And who are you?
Amazing. Thank you, Felicia. Such a great point. Petra?
Balance is an interesting one. Like, I could sit here and say, I'm perfectly balanced. Because I genuinely think my work's really fun and happy. I run my own business and do lots of things. If my boyfriend was sat here, he'd say something different. Yeah. Because there's me, there's him, there's my kids, and there's the relationship in the middle. And I have, he would say, a greater relationship with my mission. And it's really sneaky when you do love your work and you're passionate about it. Oh my God, you can rationalize everything then. But this matters, at the expense of the people around you. So 2 points. One is presence. So quality is often more important than quantity, right? So we think we've got all the, like, how do we split our time and all these people need us and whatever. When I was, in a place where I was strapped for time, I remember 2 kids, I would spend 10 minutes of conscious presence with each of them each evening. So of course we would chat and do dinner or whatever, but there might be a phone or there might be a distraction. And so I would do one-on-one time. So it was like full, no distractions, sorry to use you as a prop, and really trying to connect with them. And that was all I could do. And arguably you want to do more than that, right? But that was what I could do. The second thing about this work-life balance business, think of a bicycle. This is where my Dutch roots do come in, right? And if you think one pedal is work, one pedal is everything else, right? If you're just pedaling one side, right, you're gonna tip. If you're just pedaling the other side, you're gonna tip. But well-being is not static. So full balance only happens when you're in motion, right? That doesn't mean you can't sit and meditate, but it means we are striving to be well. We are striving to be the best versions of ourselves. We are flawed humans. And so this notion of like we must attain, is usually very small, right? Like, oh, I had a great meditation session. I have arrived, right? And the very next day you yell at your kids for an unreasonable thing, right? Because life happens. And so if we use this idea that like all of the little tools, whatever you use, if you keep being in motion, that's where I believe that balance can be found.
Amazing, such a great point, and I mean it made me thinking also and reflecting on how do I balance, my personal life and my professional life, because of course, as an entrepreneur myself, as the founder of a business, I need to wear so many hats all the time, right? So there are some days that I need to work a little bit harder, I need to work a little bit longer. But then I'm thinking to myself that, yes, there might be some days that we might go a little bit go the extra mile to deliver the milestone or whatever, but then the next day I will give myself a day off. So, and I also want to remind myself always that I want to be myself and my teams the best boss, right? So how can I make this happen? Every day I'm asking myself this question. So now we're at the very end of our panel discussion, and it is just one last question, because I feel like we covered too much already. There's one single thing that I would like to ask. There is one thing, if there is one thing, one tip, one best practice, one strategy that you would like to share with our participants here, and they can just take it as a main takeaway from today. What would you recommend, and more specifically about how we can help our women at work to embrace women empowerment, and how we ourselves can promote women empowerment internally within our organizations? Felicia, I would love to hear your take on this.
Okay, that's a lot. All right, let me try to keep it simple. Let me start with individual, so personal. There's 2 terms that I use. One is envision, so I-N, envision. Nobody else, whatever that looks like, whether that is journaling, whether that is reading, whether that is connecting with people who have similar values, that's important. Envision. So in getting clarity and understanding what your goals are, in understanding what's important, what's not working, what is working, what you want to change, that envision is critical. And then also the next phase is just reflecting on what's next. So envisage. So yeah, I get this. You know, I just finished my MBA or I just got a new job. So what is that next? What is that future? What is that goal? What is that desire? And believe it or not, that's what excites your brain. So a lot of what, oh, I can go forever, so I'm gonna keep it short. A lot of what we're experiencing is our brain is not happy because our brains are just dictated by tasks. Do this, do that, finish the report, get the report, send the report, do the report, did you have the meeting, did you have the Zoom call, right? Task. So our brain is on autopilot and there's no excitement. So envisage. Now from an HR perspective, I'd love for us to be intentional, and I use the word intentional specifically, around how we support our employees, our workforce. So of course, I'm gonna go a little bit technical. So attract, retain, develop, yes, HR speak, nod, yes. So I noticed that the recruitment is like on fire. Recruit, getting people in the door. What about the retain? What about the develop? What about the retain? What about the develop? So that when I am having the conversation one-to-one, here's a little secret, I don't have to hear, you know what? I'm giving myself a timeline because this is my window, I'm talking about talented executives. I'm giving myself 5 years. I'm giving myself 4 years. I'm giving myself 3 years. And the timelines are really shrinking. I spoke with someone a few years ago. She says, 6 months and I'm out. So my conversations are a lot different now. Wait, hang on a minute, whoa. Right, 6 months and I am out, because people are thinking about values, they're thinking about alignment, they're thinking about purpose. They want you to mean something other than earning money, making money, getting money. People have worn thin of that.
Amazing.
I'm going to leave it
Yeah.
there. So
that was really incredible what you just said. And I feel like it resonates with so many people in, HR here. I feel like I work in HR for some reason. But when every single person, talks about HRs and what do they need to do and how do they, I'm like, talks to my heart, So thanks for sharing, Felicia. What are your thoughts on this, Petra?
So I'll keep it real brief. Check your influences and learn to think for yourself. If you want to know how to do that, read my book. I believe there's a discount code in your gift bag, so hit me up on LinkedIn. And then as far as HR, I think you spoke a little bit to the process side of things. And I would just touch on psychological safety, which is an organizational challenge, and making sure that we've got our allies involved in the conversation, our influences, senior, male, female, however people identify, like bringing in, I find that there's these networks, right, that are like women over here, diverse groups over here, mental health over there, like everybody's like, and we need our people, we need our tribe, but I would like there to be more intersectionality between these different groups because we're all on the same side, and psychological safety is that underpinning to allow us to be safe enough to even talk about some of these other things.
I love what you just said, Petra, because it's all about breaking down the stigma also, and when we're able to create psychological safety in the right safe space, then we can actually break so many myths around burnout and stress and anxiety, men and women, and all this stuff. So I want, because we've covered a lot already, I just want to make sure that, you can actually ask any questions you like to our lovely panelists. So if anyone has any questions, please raise your hand. Yeah, perfect.
Hello, ladies. It was absolutely amazing. So my name is Justina, I'm a mind body coach, and just briefly, I used to work for a massive corporation, Procter & Gamble, now I'm entrepreneur. So, but what I found it in like with my clients, and I try to get in more into like, wellness program for corporation. What we talking about is amazing about, finding yourself, like the balance if we can have it, but what I found it is also very important to work on our health and our body, because if we don't have health and our body is not strong, we can really think about, okay, I just have the vision, have the ambition to do things, but if you don't have healthy body, that's come through nutrition and fitness and having that balance, you can't go to the next level. So my question is, as a UI in HR, after looking on all different research, there is so much lack of bringing like simple wellness program that can help the employer doing in the easiest, more holistic way, the simple things to, eat a little healthier or have a little physical activities. Everyone is different, but we can create a program that we can connect with individuals and just help them to achieve that, because that will come with confidence, that will come with, finding things that works for you, so you become physically better, and then you have that connection like mind, body, and soul. So what are your thoughts about that?
Who would you like to ask this question? Like Petra, Felicia?
Both. Because I found you have like the show. Do you mind? I'll kick off. Movement is the single best way to prevent burnout. Because stress stacks in your body, you know this, right? And so shaking it out, however that looks, is the single best way. I think we all get it, like on a surface level, we're like, of course, our health, and then we sacrifice our health 1,000 ways, right? And from a work perspective, you need two things to create a mentally healthy organization. You need organizational responsibility, so the programs, the offers, the psychological safety, the space to do any of these things, the challenge, the leading by example, and you need individual responsibility. Because we do see programs and we know that engagement has dipped. And people are in survival mode, post-pandemic. Most people are still in like fight, flight, like in that sort of zone. So I think there's some challenges as you may be experiencing, right, with getting that balance right to maximize engagement. But also if everyone is spending their downtime avoiding and numbing, right, it takes like a crisis often to wake you up to actually do the things. Right, but you're absolutely right. We need to focus on health.
So what's interesting is, even with the programs that are available in the workplace, we are not maximizing how we take advantage of them, generalizing based on the conversations that I have. So individual, to your point, how can I better manage my own stress, my own well-being, my own physical condition? It's up to each person to say, I need 30 minutes to do whatever it is that is important for your well-being. So don't sit at the desk all day and talk about you're busy, you got reports, you got deadlines, because those deadlines will be there regardless. And I kid you not, I'll tell you a story really quickly, I promise you. I'll tell you a story. It's about my husband. So he was called in for a program at a school on the day of the funeral of the gentleman who was delivering that program. And I'm just going to let that sit. It's our responsibility to seek out the programs that are available, because there's some great programs in the workplace. When is the last time have we dusted off? I don't know if it's a portal or handbook. There are programs that are available. It's up to us to participate and make sure that they are, that they're there for us.
We're seeing absolutely right, and sometimes the comms plan is a bit shit, right? Or people aren't able to access some of these things. So there's but like to make it doable in the workplace, like with my team, we'll have a team meeting, and at the end we'll say, how are you investing in yourself today? Or how are you shaking out your stress today? I'm the CEO, I've got to start. And now everybody does it. They'll ask me, how are you shaking out your stress? And I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake. I created monsters. But you know what I mean? So it's like, it's intrinsic to the fabric of our organization, not just an awareness day or a program or something on the side.
But it should be consistent.
Yes.
And I think also it starts and ends with the leaders within the organization, because so many times I see with our team we'll launch a new program that the senior leaders are not on board. And if they are not on board, you know, employees are just getting inspired and follow your lead. And if you're not there, if you're not engaged, if you really are not an advocate of your own initiative, then how do you expect people to be aware, to be engaged, to be active, right? So I'm conscious of the time, so we're going to have 2 questions, and please choose 1 speaker per question. And anyway, don't worry about it, because we're going to have a networking session and you can ask questions at the end. So, sorry, it's not that belonging. Sorry.
I'm just going to ask you, how do you overcome imposter syndrome?
Oh, wow.
I know you've mentioned that earlier, like due to maybe you're a woman of color, or you've got an accent, or you work in a male-dominated industry. Yeah.
Okay, so I have all 3. And really briefly, it's not just us, okay? If you think of any person in the room at some point, we've just attached that term to us as women. All it means is that you are encountering a situation where you have to perform at a higher level and you feel uncomfortable. So if I could scratch a term, it would be imposter syndrome. That discomfort is there to push you to do more. It's just like any other situation. If I need to run faster, if I need to throw further, if I need to interview for promotion, all of those are pressure points, and all of those points create anxiety. So if there was a term I could scratch, it would be imposter syndrome.
Yeah. One last question, guys, because I'm conscious of the time, and anyway, we'll have time during our networking session. You can ask, our speakers will be here with us, so you can ask any questions you would like. But we can take one last question. Sorry, Jess.
Yeah, Jess. Hi, I'm Jess Brown, and I work in people team for a tech company in London. And something you mentioned there about it starts from leaders, and I think my question is, when you are required to get buy-in from SMT, CEO, CFO, and they perhaps don't see the value in well-being, especially at times that we're dealing with now. Budgets are tight, there is no budget for well-being, there's no budget for, nobody's getting extra annual leave, we're not giving people a day off, like everyone has to work hard, and we need to make sure that people are not burnt out. So how do you do that? How do you get that buy-in from, especially I guess maybe people that don't feel it themselves, and so are kind of maybe a little bit blind to maybe that other people would be feeling that. And I suppose it's our job, like I said, as a people team, to be the ones who advocate for that for the rest of the company. So I'm always conscious of how I do that to senior management when I know there is no budget. I don't want to come across as I'm unaware that there is no budget and like, well, we need to do it anyway because that's pointless, right? What's anyone's advice? That is not directed to anyone in particular, but if anyone has a good answer for that, I'd be interested to hear.
Yeah, so I do this for a living. So it's all about talking about the business case for mental health in the workplace, and it's translating the language of it's just the right thing to do, right, to numbers and hard facts connected to the industry. And so I have seen the most well-intentioned, well-meaning, well-being leads get into the boardroom and talk about suicide statistics and talk about kind of numbers that there's not a real connection to, even though they're real and they're tough, but it's like trying to approach it from a heart perspective. When you're in that room, you got to approach it from a head perspective, right? So putting the numbers and then showing the return on investment of putting different things in place. Now, this isn't just an awareness event. Like, we're trying to think, what are the measurable things that we can put in place at the targeted level? So what's your survey engagement saying, your engagement survey, sorry, What are your statistics saying? Talent retention is bloody expensive, right? Losing people. So if those are your numbers, those are the ones you kind of dial up, right? And so it's finding your influencers at that level, because there will be some. There will be one or two. Get them to speak on your behalf. Do a prep before. You can see I do this all day. Connect with me. I'm happy to talk you through more details.
Amazing, amazing. Honestly, it was an evening, at least for me, that it had a little bit of everything. Like, we had fun, we had spirituality and wisdom, and we experienced ourselves like so much, like inspiring, so many inspiring moments. Thanks to Petra and Felicia. And just I want to give special thanks to both of you for being here with us tonight, and a round of applause for our lovely speakers. So also I want to thank you for your amazing questions, and I really want to encourage you to just connect with each one of us during the networking session, and let's discuss your questions. But I would also love to hear your ideas, your own advice, your own thoughts on those topics we've discussed today. And speaking of your advice, I would like to share with you all that with my team, during this time of the year, we are in the process of creating a comprehensive white paper on women empowerment and future of work. Most of you here are like thought leaders, each one of you in your own industry, in your own sector. So we would love with our team to hear from you. So we kindly request 20 minutes of your time to have a virtual coffee and just to ask you a couple of questions. And we are really happy to share this white paper with you at the end. So I will definitely reach out and connect with each one of you individually, by the end of this week. So your contribution will be more than appreciated. The second thing I want to say is that I know that some businesses, they are wondering how they can actually be on our Zen Warrior program. It's a transformational well-being program which is taking place on Oxygen, and it's going to take place in September. We're going to have a limited number of businesses on this program, 8. So if you would like to hear more, I extend an invitation, and I can definitely walk you through the program. We have done all the work for you in this program, and it's a step-by-step process that's going to help your employees to feel empowered, balanced, more productive. At the very end, I just want to say some big thanks to Albright. For those of you who do not know, Albright is our partner. We are in partner with the Albright to deliver this event today. I'm really grateful to their wonderful team. So I want to give, and also in your card there is a special gift from the Albright. You can check later. But Albright, just for you who do not know, is the Global Female Collective. Is committed to create unlimited opportunities for women in their careers and the workplace. They offer a full suite of learning and development courses for career advancements, and invites to join up to 300 networking events per year. They have clubs in 34 markets, with their flagship club here in London's Mayfair, with co-working spaces, 2 restaurants, and private meeting facilities. They give a special discount just for you guys, just for today. So feel free to check your bags later. And I just want to say that we are going to be on a networking session. And the question for today is, what's your favorite holiday destination? So let's talk about holidays. We are going to spread ourselves a little bit around the room, so please continue the conversation. I hope you all enjoyed the panel discussion. And just can we have a round of applause for Oxygen team and the Albright. So enjoy the wine, enjoy the rest of the evening. You can also enjoy your wine outdoors here. It's a beautiful terrace. And I highly recommend you guys to
connect, like be brave and just go outside your comfort zone and go and introduce yourself to other women. I know some women here are real powerhouses, so grab the opportunity, right? So thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much all for this amazing event.